What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 predictions for the upcoming 2024 college football season. The Ole Miss Rebels are up next, coming off a great year last year in 2023. This team did go to a New Year's Six Bowl. It was a really great season overall, for Ole Miss last year. And this team actually was not that far behind from winning the SEC West as well. My thoughts on this team for 2024, I think they're going to be really good. I mean, you look at the offensive side of the football, we know how explosive they can be on the offense with Lane Kiffin calling plays. They have a good amount of production coming back on the offense as well. They also brought in a ton of experience, like I said, not just on the roster, but also from the transfer portal. I think with the key additions that they've added in the transfer portal, this offense will be very explosive. And then defensively, you do have some concerns there every single year when you're an Ole Miss fan. The defense hasn't been quite as good as it has been, ever since Lane Kiffin's been there. But with all the transfers that they have coming in to help out, I feel like, Ole Miss will be a little bit quite good on the defensive side of the football. But I feel like this team has a chance to be really solid this year for 2024. So let's look at the schedule here for 2024. This is the schedule for Ole Miss. Again, they were 11-2 last year in 2023. So let's go game by game now and give you a record prediction here for the Ole Miss Rebels for 2024. First game of the season is against Furman here at home on August 31st. I think Ole Miss wins that one pretty easily. And they also play Middle Tennessee after that here on September 7th. So they have a couple of cupcake games here to start out the year. I think Ole Miss wins both of these games pretty easily. I think Furman probably is a game where I think they can win that one by at least like 40 or 50 points. And then Middle Tennessee probably won't be a game that's probably going to be a blowout. It could probably be like a 30-point win for Ole Miss. But still, either way, I think Ole Miss will take care of business in both of those games, and they start off easily at 2-0. And then there's that big game on the road at Wake Forest here on September the 14th. This will be a Power 4 non-conference game. It is on the road. Wake Forest, obviously wasn't very good last year. Will they be better a little bit this year? It's kind of hard to tell. I think they're going to have a really good defense. They got a good amount of production coming back on that side of the football, but I think in this game, I think Ole Miss definitely is the more talented team and definitely the more experienced team. But it is on the road. It won't be an easy one here for Ole Miss. I think it's definitely a trap game here to start out the year for the Rebels. End of the day, though, I feel like the game will probably be close in the first half, but I think second half the Rebels will pull away in this one, and I think that will be enough to win here on the road at Wake Forest. I'm going to go with Ole Miss here to defeat the Demon Deacons here on the road. Again, just because I think Ole Miss is the more talented team and definitely also the more experienced team. That's the reason why I'm going with the Rebels here to knock off Wake Forest here on the road. So that puts their record at 3-0, and then they take care of business against Georgia Southern here on September 21st. So that puts their record at 4-0. Next game is at home against Kentucky here at home on September 28th. I think Kentucky might have a chance to be a sneaky good team in the SEC this year. This won't be an easy one here for Ole Miss, even though it's at home. I think Kentucky definitely will compete in this one. Kentucky might have a chance to be a top 25 team as well. They also added some pieces in the transfer portal. Both of these teams did a nice job in the transfer portal, but the Rebels are playing at home in this one. I do expect a close game here between these two teams. I think Kentucky has a good enough defense to maybe stop Ole Miss from scoring a lot of points, but I feel like it will be a shootout here between these two teams. I think Ole Miss, though, I do favor them in a shootout here. Plus, they're playing at home in this one. It's a very tough game to call. So home field advantage might favor the difference in this one. I'm going to go with the Rebels here to knock off Kentucky here on September 28th. So I got Ole Miss getting the win there, and that puts their record here at 5-0. Next game is on the road here at South Carolina on October the 5th. South Carolina is a team that I'm kind of having a hard time figuring out how good they're going to be. I mean, offensively, they do lose a lot of key pieces on the offensive side of the football. Spencer Rather, of course, now gone to the NFL and everything. Defensively, they might have a really good defense this year. This game is on the road, though, at South Carolina. This is a very tough game on the road for Ole Miss. Definitely another one of those trap games, just like the Wake Forest game, but I feel like Ole Miss is definitely the more talented team here and definitely the more experienced team as well. I think this game probably comes down, like probably said, to the Wake Forest game. It is probably a close game in the first half. I think Ole Miss does pull away, though, in the second half. And I think Ole Miss does win here on the road at South Carolina. Again, it's a very tough game on the road. It's a very tough place to play. I know that. But I feel like Ole Miss definitely is the more talented team and definitely, again, the more experienced roster. So with that being said, with a more talented team and definitely the more experienced team as well, I think Ole Miss beats South Carolina here on the road, and that puts their record here at 6-0, so they remain undefeated. And the next game is on the road here at LSU here on October 12th, so they got back-to-back road games here with South Carolina and LSU. These are very tough back-to-back road games here for Ole Miss. I think LSU will be a tougher road test, though, than the South Carolina game. This is obviously a revenge game here for the Tigers. LSU, I think, is going to be really good again this year, even though they lost their starting quarterback. But I feel like Ole Miss definitely has the better offense in this one, but I think defensively, LSU has the better defense. They have a big margin from the defensive side of the football. It is a close game. I think it pretty much comes down to how it was last year. It was a shootout last season, and I think this year it's going to be another shootout, but this is a coin flip type game, just like the Kentucky game. I think home field advantage might favor the difference in this one. So with that being said, the home team is LSU. I'm going to go with the Tigers here, and I think they give Ole Miss their first loss of the season, and not just that, I think they get revenge here on Ole Miss from last year's game as well. So that puts Ole Miss's record here at 6-1, and then the Rebels get a bye week here before playing Oklahoma at home on October 26th. Of course, a newcomer in the SEC. This should be a very interesting game here between both of these teams. I think the Sooners are going to have a really good defense this year to keep Ole Miss from scoring a lot of points in this one, just like Kentucky here and also just like LSU. But I think Ole Miss comes out pretty angry. I think they're trying to get a redemption win after the loss to LSU a couple weeks ago, and plus they get a bye week before playing this game. I think that's going to be enough to, make them come out pretty angry in this one. They come out really at full strength, and I think they get a bounce-back win after the loss to LSU a couple weeks ago, and they beat Oklahoma here on October 26th. So that puts their record here at 7-1, and the next game is on the road here at Arkansas on November 2nd. Another potentially a trap game here for Ole Miss. I think Arkansas is not going to be that really good this year. This game, though, is on the road, so you never know what can happen. And plus, this game is in the month of November. Arkansas is going to be pretty young this year. Maybe they're better by this time, but I just don't think Arkansas has the talent to compete with Ole Miss in this game. It probably could be a shootout here between these two teams, but I think the game's probably going to be like the South Carolina and Wake Forest games. I think Ole Miss probably pulls away in the second half, and they find a way to win this one. So I think Ole Miss takes care of business against Arkansas in the second half, and I think the Rebels improve to 8-1 on the season. And then they get ready for a big-time game here at home against Georgia on November the 9th. Obviously, they got beat by this Georgia team really badly last year. I don't really expect the same kind of game to happen as it did from last year. I just don't think Ole Miss is on Georgia's level, though, just yet. Georgia has just a lot of talent on the roster. They also have a good quarterback in Carson Beck. I've already done my Georgia prediction video from last week, and I did say that the Bulldogs probably start off slow. The game's probably close in the first half, but I think second half, I think Georgia's probably going to pull away in this one. So I think Ole Miss probably puts up a fight in this one, but I just don't think it will be enough for an upset here. So with that being said, I think Georgia does beat Ole Miss here at home on November the 9th, and they give Ole Miss their second loss here of the season. They get another bye week right after that Georgia game before playing a tough one here on the road at Florida on November 23rd. Florida, I don't think they're going to be a terrible team this year. It's not really just about the roster for them. It's more about the schedule. This is a very talented Florida team. This won't be an easy game here on the road for the Rebels. I think the Rebels, like the LSU game, right after that LSU game, they're going to come out again angry in this one. They have a couple weeks to, heal up from after that Georgia loss and everything after getting the bumps and bruises. So with that being said, I think Ole Miss probably gets a bounce-back win here. I know this game is on the road at Florida. It's definitely one of those upset alert type games, but I'm going to go with Ole Miss here just because I think they have the more talented roster, and I feel like Ole Miss's defense probably will make some key time stops here in this one. So I think Ole Miss wins it here on the road at Florida. Again, it's a very close game. It definitely goes into the fourth quarter, but I think Ole Miss wins it here just because they're the more talented team. So that puts Ole Miss's record here at 9-2. And then the final game of the season is against Mississippi State here at home on November 30th. So instead of being on a Thursday this year, it will be switched over to a Saturday. Of course, this is the Egg Bowl. We've seen some really good matchups here in the past between these two teams. Ole Miss playing at home this year, though. Mississippi State is a team that I'm not very high on this year. New head coach and obviously a very young team and a lot of roster turnover, especially on the defense. They have a lot of guys gone from that side of the football this year. So with that being said, I think Ole Miss is going to score a lot of points in this one. But this is a rivalry game. You never know what can happen. But I think Ole Miss, it probably will be a close game in the first half. But just like the road games against Wake Forest, South Carolina, and Arkansas, I think Ole Miss pulls away in the second half, and I think they win their final game of the season here in the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State here in rivalry weekend on November 30th. So my overall prediction here for Ole Miss is 10-2 for 2024. I think this is a pretty fair prediction here just because I think that there's a lot of talent on this Ole Miss team. This team has a chance to be a playoff contender. I'm telling you, this team is going to be really good. They also have a chance to be a top contender in the SEC and also a top 10 team as well. But they got some tough road games. They got Wake Forest, South Carolina, and Arkansas, and Florida. Those are definitely trap games there. I think the Florida game, instead of like the Arkansas and South Carolina and Wake Forest games, I think that Florida game probably goes into the fourth quarter. I was kind of back and forth on that game. I was going to go with Florida, but I decided to go with Ole Miss just because they're the more talented roster and definitely the more experienced team as well. But again, my official prediction here for Ole Miss for 2024 is 10-2 for the upcoming season. So give me your thoughts on this Ole Miss team down in the comments below. What do you think their record will be in 2024? Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.